Mine might seem simplistic, but my question was, where in the transition does that money go? The $20, like, does it get invested in a traditional bank? Do you also have a framework or an idea of creating a different type of system that operates and looks like a bank? Or that's where I go a little fuzzy.
Sure. No, that's great. That's a great question. And right now, at this moment in time, it would be held in a traditional bank. But as the fellowships deepen and as we expand, with the relationships, there might be a new banking system that is created. That might be somebody's contribution of time,
Mm.
to create a new system like that. But
Oh,
that's a good question. Absolutely.
good.
Mhm.
I don't have a question. I just have goosebumps.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That means something's resonating.
Yeah.
And like I said, going back to my expectation, I don't expect all of this to be understood. I mean, it's a lot for the conscious mind to grasp. But it's giving us a tool now that we can share with others. Where we can create new fellowships and ask more questions and kind of create this as we go. I mean, my role in this is to help people become aware that time is an asset, and that we can, if we're all in agreement, we can add that exponential value to our time, so that we really can see each other as equal partners based on our contributions and based on our diversity, based on what we have to contribute.
Yeah. The
It
other
kind
thing
of
is that,
makes,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead, Parmjit. Go ahead.
It kind of makes more sense for the money not to be dollars, but to be like electronic money that can flow between like countries and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's all imaginary, to tell you the truth. It's based on faith. A lot of our economic system is based on faith, because based on my research.
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Parmjit?
Guys.
There you are.
Are you there?
Hi. Are you there, Parmjit? Oh, I keep losing her.
No, she looks like she's frozen now.
Okay. I'll explain this here so that I can add it onto the video as well too. A lot of our economic system, the reason why there's such a drive to go to cryptocurrency or to go to digital currency, is because it's all based on faith anyway. It's very in the mind. It's very psychological. Based on my research, as far as tangible material assets, there's only about 60 to 80 trillion dollars worth of assets that are available on this planet. But there's a $257 trillion deficit. So that tells you right there, there's definitely a mind game going on there. There's definitely something that's more psychological than it is tangible.
And it's interesting because what I'm present to is, like, even for those who have a very strong competitive bone, inside this system that you're describing, it's like the motivating factor is the more I am service to others. I mean, they can compete with themselves that way. It's like, if I really want to, quote unquote, win within the system, it's really the underlying factor is service to others. So everyone wins.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's really the difference, is because to me, my interpretation is this $257 trillion deficit is an imbalance because of the service to self, this competitive drive. I mean, when you look at the underbelly of the human trafficking, the drug trade, all of the black market activities, this is reflective of this imbalance of really selfish aims. But when we turn it around and we're becoming inclusive, and we're creating these partnerships, these fellowships, and we give each other this ability to grow through that binary fission-like method, we're turning that deficit into a surplus. So that's how we can measure psychologically and spiritually, are people, serving self, or are they finding that balance in being able to be inclusive and serve others as well? And that's why I also call it a service and education market economy, because what we're doing here is also education. It's enrichment. This just happens to be, my area of focus. But education comes in whatever it is that you have to share that enriches others. So again, that's why I also call it a service and education market economy, in addition to an equal partnership economy.
Sorry, my computer went all a bit weird. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, my computer went a bit weird after I asked the question about digital money. What was the answer to that?
Yeah, the money, what came up for me is that with digital money and why there's a push for cryptocurrency and digital currency is because all of this is based on faith anyway. It's more psychological than it is tangible. In my research, my understanding is there's really only anywhere between 60 to 80 trillion dollars worth of tangible assets on this planet, and yet there's a $257 trillion deficit.
Okay, yeah, I came back in when you were saying that. So is that an argument to say it doesn't matter whether it's digital or not, or are you favouring one side? Are you favouring more?
I'm really, it's more of an exploration to me, Parmjit. It's all psychological to me anyway. It's an energy exchange, going back to energy awareness there, Marta. We're just measuring it. And to me, what we're doing is we're measuring time, and we're changing what we're proposing through this is we're changing the way we account for our time to create more of a service to others, equal partnership relationship with our ruling class, really.
Okay. I think for me, the thing about this is the energy. It's going to work more, as you say, around education and building partnerships and building trust and relationships. It's not going to translate into getting food on the table and those kind of basic needs that people have an expectation that money will do. And so then you're back in that same area of how do we communicate to people who are at grassroots that, hey, these are the things that are going on, and it's like you can't say the same information to everybody. You've got to find out, like, what are their interests? Are they like into computing and numbers, or are they into words? Are they into policy? And then you've got to find that passion, and then you've got to find the connection with somebody else who knows something about it. So it's more about that process for me.
Absolutely. And that's where
that?
Go ahead. Yeah. And that's where the need for fellowship comes in. And that's where those hours that we're accumulating in the time bank can be used to deepen those relationships. We have here in the Phoenixville area in Pennsylvania, we have the time bank that works with food banks as well. So, there's certain relationships that are developed where people will donate food instead of hours, and they'll count that as hours. So that's one example. I mean, there's so many infinite myriads of ways that can express itself. That's up to the individual to express what their needs and their wants are. And that comes back to the quality of the fellowships. But yeah, absolutely. And that's, that might be your work, Parmjit. How does this translate into that kind of a scenario?
Yeah, at the basis of it is that people are not looking at they're not framing the problems truthfully. And that's the biggest kind of problem, that they're not framing truthfully. But underneath that, there are a myriad of others too.
Yeah. And that's where those 6 principles come in, Marta, as well. How do we do the committed speaking, and how do we do the deep listening so that we can be truthful about the problem? That's how do we integrate Mike and Nefertiti's work as well too. From a body awareness or from a creativity awareness. How do we get to the truth of that? And that's the conversation we're starting today. And that's why when we go forward with our fellowships, that's what we want to discuss. And we might want to include other people in that conversation as well too.
I can really clearly connect my work anyway to that conversation in terms of looking at competition and we'll call it, a selfish way of focusing on generating money and, the ruling class, right? If you look at how we develop, and this is where the 7 layers of consciousness that I've been talking about on and off in our conversations comes in. You can start to see that, as Parmjit was saying, we can't speak the same way to everybody because they have different ways of hearing it. They have different passions. They have different motivations. I believe this correlates directly to our level of development. And I believe the dysfunction we're experiencing is that we have a very low level of development in the ruling class. Because they're looking at it in terms of survival, in terms of power over dynamics rather than power with, which is where the nonviolent communication tool comes in, because it teaches power with dynamics. It's a more developed consciousness of how we interact with one another and how we relate. And the beautiful part about the way we're approaching this is that the way you develop is through relationship.
Yes.
That's how our nervous system develops. That's how our brain develops. That's how our consciousness develops. And through interacting in a way where we're valuing relationship over competition, we're essentially taking what I refer to as the lower 3 foundational survival levels. And notice I call them foundational. We need them. It's not that they're bad. It's that they are limited in that they are simplistic, and you might call it, this might be a little bit of a minefield calling it this, but I call it conservative because it's it's valuable in that it's stable. It's valuable in that it provides the foundation, but it is by no means the way to continue that process. So what you might call the more liberal side of what's possible to create. The liberal cannot be supported without the foundation. Yes. And the foundation isn't going anywhere without the liberal. And so you might call, I correlate these with the 7 chakras, and you look at the different qualities of the human experience. And down at the base root level, you have these power over survival dynamics that we're all dealing with the consequences of today. And it's all implicit. It's all unconscious. As you've been saying, we need to create more consciousness, but that's not to devalue the unconscious foundations that are there. They're valuable in and of themselves.
Yes.
There could be an amazing foundation we can build off of from these, quote unquote, lower levels of development that are based on power over. We have these parts of us. We all have them within us. We can acknowledge all of those parts. We can build this new way of functioning and relating together in a way that is consciously rich and integrative. All levels of self are being accounted for. And so you get the 7th layer of human development, which is all about, if you've ever looked at Claire Graves' value system, a very clear way it's already been articulated, integrative thinking, where we're looking at the value of every other level of functioning and being able to see the value there and to speak to each one as valuable as a part of the entire framework of humanity. And so where this makes sense to me, this whole system, is where it looks at relationships and development and how we function together that way. The money part is a little bit more confusing to me. It's just not where my proficiencies lie. So I'm grateful for you, Mike, and for everyone here for helping me to understand how this fits together, because I can see it from a human developmental relational point of view, the consciousness, but bringing in the economy to the conversation, that's new to me, and I would love to bring those together in any way I can.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And I think where a lot of the confusion does stem from too is that this is already being implemented. The idea of compounded interest, it's already being implemented, but it's being implemented against us, so that 1% of 1% of the, of our human population technically own the rest of us. So we're just kind of taking that same system, but turning it around so that it's more equitable. I mean, that's what comes up for me in response to, why I think it's confusing, because, it is a system that's designed to be confusing. I mean, Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Those who understand it make it. Those who don't understand it are controlled by it. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's the general idea of what we're dealing with this exponential compounded interest idea.
Mm.
I think the other thing for me is like there's a conversation, isn't there, where you're having, and both people get a lot out of the conversation because everyone's got a slightly different perspective or skill or whatever. And then there's another kind of conversation where it's maybe more mentory because this person knows a little bit more about this particular issue or topic. And then, so it's like, how do we work through that and define what kind of conversation is what within that? And then I don't get like how the money would then filter down. Like in my head, say we've got like a university of the future where it's kind of more about mentorship, where you're just guiding the person to go and find out stuff and ask the right questions, kind of thing. So okay, so that would be a mentorship thing. So then I wonder whether that can be a model that could be integrated into a mentorship stroke future university thing.
Absolutely. I know people who would want to devote time to that kind of an idea. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what you're creating, Parmjit, by asking those questions of yourself. First of all, as far as, how do we have that conversation? We're having that conversation. We're doing the work. We're doing the work now. And by asking those questions, we're starting to create the method on how it might filter down. I don't like to think of it as being filtered down. I like to think of it as expanding out. But yeah, we're having that conversation. And by you entertaining those questions, I would like to encourage you writing about those questions, writing about what comes up for you, because I think you're creating a pathway for all of us by entertaining those questions.
So say it started off with, say, you and who have you been working the longest with? Nefertiti?
Marta, really.
Marta? Okay, say you both started this kind of mentorship-based university. So go through that story of what happens next with your economics and what you have to offer. Or you could include all five of us if you like.
What happens next is whatever fellowship you want to create, Parmjit, whatever fellowships we want to create, whatever we want to talk about. If we want to talk about how do we provide more structure, creating a university, that's what happens next. It's whatever we conceive in our minds and whatever we decide to become emotionally committed to.
Okay.
Yeah, it might. There's room for all ideas. There's room for everything. Right now, you might say that this is. I personally, I like the idea of mentorship, but I want to bring the idea of mentorship to being that it's an equal partnership. We all have assets, and we all have blind spots. And we're all helping each other to understand both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess there could be two levels. So there would be a level of interaction between mentors, and then there would be a level of interaction, I'm thinking young people, because of the problems that I'm having with kind of the mindsets of people who are actually pulling all the strings and being we had that conversation before we actually set off on the webinar. Excuse me just a minute.
Sure.
My batteries are going low. Okay, so there's the conversations between mentors, which is like on the same level, and then there would be between mentors and young people who know that they are being they're not being educated in the way that they want to be educated, that they know that there's stuff out there that needs to be learned, but they're not getting access to that information. So it's something about, for me, if we can make that our target group. But when I say young people, I think there are older people who are flexible thinkers, and there are older people who have all the answers, So.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to the quality of the relationship too, Parmjit, because we're at the moment we're talking about intangibles. This person who's older might be this way. This person who's younger might be that way. I think again, to me, it comes back to the idea of fellowship and making it personal. We do not have to serve the needs of a demographic. We just need to be present for the individual. That's my opinion on it. That's definitely not, I don't want to speak for you, or I don't want to, I don't want to be contradictory to what you're saying. But I think that problem or that issue will work itself out as you're deepening the personal relationship with members of your fellowship.
I can bring up
Sorry?
I was just going to bring up an example that I'm working on.
Yeah, go, please, Marta.
But if you want to say something, Parmjit, to what Mike
No. I'll say it after your example.
Because one of the things I'm very seriously taking steps to move to Portugal and to be with my parents. And one of the things that from a creative standpoint, from an innovation standpoint, that I'm really excited about and engaged in is becoming a part, like a fellowship of some of these really exquisite like co-ops that are happening, whether they're small farmers that, that take their yield, whether it's, grapes for wine, or whether it's, they have cattle and they've got, stuff that they make for cheese, things like that. But what I don't understand a lot of it, but what I'm engaged in is their collaboration and how they work. They've known each other for a very, very long time. They help each other. So if this farmer is working on this piece of land, then they'll get, if they need some help, they'll ask that one, because they're all working towards that common good. And they understand about agriculture in a way that I don't, and I can probably help from whatever perspective I've been experiencing these 50 years being in the US. So I see ways there where this could help, where what Mike is proposing with the time bank. I don't know all the details, but I have this gut, right, Mike, as you're talking about, I have this gut feeling that this is possible. And so if I allow just that experience to lead me forward and ask the questions and talk to the different people, I know something like this can happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but what I do know that I have to do is, again, practice those 6 principles, and one of them, generous listening, because if I hear something that they're expressing to me, I might be able to then grow what we're doing collectively a little bit more. And likewise, so I'm not quite sure what I'm saying, but I love what you said, Parmjit, about but how does this all put food on the table? And I have those questions all the time, and I'm always looking from that, because I know at some level people need just the basic essentials in order to really feel safe and comfortable, in order to really be curious and explore and be those higher selves, Mike, like you're talking about. So that's kind of what I'm intuiting at the moment. But I love that question, because I often think that too. How does this translate to getting people their basics? This could be a way.
And what's coming up for me right now? We've been on this call for an hour and 40 minutes. I would like to wrap in 20 minutes if that's okay. But something that also comes up for me, coming back to this theme of time being a tangible, measurable asset. There's 5 of us on this call. We're going to be at this for 2 hours. That's 10 hours, that we've taken out of, the competitive economy. So I want people to, to understand,
Yeah.
that we're doing the work. I mean, we're doing the work that's required, even if we don't think we are. Just being conscious of what we want to do with our lives, what we want to address with our lives, and sharing that. That's the work. That's the work. So keeping that in mind, I do want to wrap in 20 minutes. Does anybody have anything they really want to say right now in response to what we've been talking about here in the last 10 or 15 minutes or so?
Real quick, Michael,
Yeah.
just wanted to, you took the words right out of my mouth. I love all the input from everyone, and the time being an asset is something that I'm going to dive deeper into, because I think it helps to hear it on an ongoing basis, that what I focus.
Oh, there you go. No sound right now, Nefertiti. Okay, now you're on mute, so hopefully now we'll get it. You're on mute, Nefertiti. Nefertiti, you're on mute.
I love how her spirit comes through anyways.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not hearing anything, but I get her. I get what she's about.
I'm just an asset, and that's something I'm going to be deepening into. We all have the power right here, right now, to do something when we focus our attention on things that matter and help us grow. Thank you. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, great, thank you, Nefertiti. Yeah, and this is all going to be hours that we're going to log on here. So I'm going to log 2 hours for everybody after this conversation, and we're continuing to measure it.
Thank you.
So one thing I just want to speak to on our itinerary, and then I'm going to open the rest of this up for any questions or any free conversation, but I do want to end at 9 o'clock. Be mindful of the services or the topics that you want to explore, okay? Be mindful of those and express that in your profile, express that on the time bank. Be mindful of the services or the topics that you're curious about. Hi, Micah. Be mindful of the services and the topics that you are curious about, where there's still gaps in your knowledge. Okay, because by expressing that, you might find another partner, you might find a fellowship that addresses those gaps in your knowledge. So I would like to encourage everybody, when you're thinking about adding to your profile on the time bank, think of the topics and the services that you want to offer, that you have a proficiency in, that you have a passion for. And then think of the topics and the services that you have a need for, that represents the gaps in your knowledge. And when you connect with somebody about that, a tool that I use is to go back to those 3 questions that we've all had conversations around. What do you have to say that you feel has not been heard? How might we better support each other, or what kind of support are you looking for? And what are we going to do differently tomorrow now that we've had this conversation today? It's just a tool, it's not a doctrine, but it's something that's helped me kind of break the ice in deepening that fellowship. So last thing I want to say on my agenda is just transparency. We're talking, we're establishing this as we go. As people are watching this conversation, some of the gaps in my knowledge and some of the opportunities that I'm looking for are for people who have the technical proficiency to create more infrastructure and to create more of a technological infrastructure around this, this reverse market mechanical process. I don't know if that's cryptocurrency. I don't know if that's going to come from traditional banking, but I feel a need to be transparent to say, look, we're looking for those partners who can help us provide more structure to this and provide more of a technological support for the people who are not technologically inclined. So, you know, for anyone who wants to be involved in our fellowships, you know, who want to be involved with this process, please go to karmicmargincall.com. You can fill out an application there, which myself and Nefertiti at the moment are reviewing. But you know, there's always room for people who want to take an administrative role in this to review the applications and to start to, you know, participate in this time bank hybrid, what I'm calling it. So that's all I have to say as part of my agenda, as part of my itinerary. So for the last 15 minutes, I'll open this up to any questions or comments, or anyone who wants to speak from your mind or your heart, please feel free to do so.
I think I'm still in a mind space at the moment. So how many people would you need to be part of this so that the energy starts to actually have a little bit of traction?
It's a good question. And really, there's not a clear answer to that, because it depends on how much someone who dedicates a lot of time to this can be worth more than just 5 or 6 physical bodies. I mean, I think it can serve everybody. And my goal is to see this expand through that exponential idea, you know, start, you know, participating in a fellowship and each individual creating a fellowship. I can see this reaching 1 million people within a year. And really that's just by everybody kind of focusing on one fellowship, creating a fellowship. If that happens every month, you know, we can touch 1 million lives within a year. And whatever hours that people want to donate to that effort, that's up to their personal calling.
And then it's back to Marta's question about, so that pool of money, is that within this group of fellowships, or this one fellowship, or is it like one big pot?
That would be managed by our time bank and our interested partners who want to take part in the management of that time bank. And that's where the treasury of the time bank comes in. So that's actual money, that's actual monetary assets, you know, that we're keeping track of. So
that's in dollars somewhere within your time bank.
Yeah, 1 hour, because it's a $25 donation annual. We divide that up. It's about $1.25 an hour. In pounds, that's about almost 1 pound an hour. There's ways to raise that. It can come out of pocket. Also, there's donors. For instance, Marta, I'm gonna use you as an example. You've already donated $100 to the treasury. But what I've done is, you know, I've put $25 in for your membership, Marta. Now there's a scholarship available for someone else, you know, who wants to, you know, participate in our time bank, and they don't have to pay anything out of pocket. And then the extra $50, Marta, I'm going to invest after you've, I'll put another $25 in the treasury after you've invested 20 hours in your fellowships. So then you have another account that starts to grow through that binary fission type process. So, so those are the 3 ways where people can contribute the financial assets to back up the hours. And again, it comes back to that idea that for us, you know, it comes back to I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by my family in the other room. For us, you know, it's only an investment of about $1 an hour. To the ruling class, you know, as we're changing our partnership with our ruling class, the more hours that people donate to this, taking away from the competitive economy, it costs them over $50,000 an hour in lost time assets. Because if you want to think of it, I hate to use the term slave. If you want to think of it as us being slaves to this system, they're losing 50,000 hours of slave labor, and that costs them, you know, $50,000 to each individual that's participating in this system.
The thing I was going to point out before, I kind of forgot about it a little bit, was a healing. It seems to me that that could be a good thing to wrap it round.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, that time that we're spending healing, again, that is a tangible, measurable asset. And people think, they're not contributing to society by taking time for their own personal healing or helping to heal others. It's tremendous. It's a tremendous asset to not just you as a person, but it's a tremendous asset to heal yourself for society at large. Absolutely.
So I still think it needs some kind of this is what it's about, because otherwise people are not going to just say, here's like £20. I don't know what's going to happen with it. It could, I mean, I'm very impressed with the people you have around the table, the e-table today, but it's like, it just seems to be going into a big void otherwise, if there isn't like some kind of a wall around it that is defined and sell it,
Harmjit, you're an owner of this, so you have my permission to frame it however you want. So yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. This is not a relationship where anyone's trying to sell or convince anybody of anything. Let's identify what you need, to be able to feel good about it, to feel good about participating. So you have my permission, and I'm sure the other owners here, please feel free to speak up. You have our permission to reframe this any way you want.
But it needs to be a common understanding, or maybe we could pick out like 2 or 3 themes. So like Mike and Nefertiti are big into healing. So you could develop that kind of strand of it and get other healers in and so on, and people who want to be healers to train up. I'm kind of into well-being. I think a couple of really strong pillars that we need to focus on. So like healing is part of well-being, if you like. You could say that. And then the other one is economics, which is obviously, you can't get away from that theme because this is about economics. So I could try to sell it to people who I know who are looking at that whole field. And then I think maybe the third one could be creativity in the sense of, this is where Marta and you come in, John, is creativity in the sense of like models that are going to work, that are replacing models that aren't working.
Okay. That's great. I would invite you to spend time developing that, Parmjit, and any time you spend, clarifying that, log it. Log that.
I'm inviting you and Marta to think through how can we make those walls so that they're going to be about models. Yeah. I'm inviting Mike Thomas and Nefertiti to think about how can we develop it so it's going to be about healing and people understanding their energies. And I will look into the economic side of it.
Okay.
Great. And I'm also including the legal side of it, because I'm working with some lawyers that have worked at the federal level here in the U.S. And now what's really inspiring them is becoming more of mediators, and conflict resolution.
At some point we're going to cross over, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. And then enlightened capitalists too, people who really love growing a business and how do you scale it, and it has a social impact. They feel social responsibility in there, so engaging them in these kinds of conversations and seeing what they come up with, right?
Let's try it and see.
Yeah, why not? Experiment. I have a healthy, threshold for experimentation and curiosity. And
that's it. Yeah, that's key. They're the kind of people we want on board. More of those people.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I just want to do a quick checkout with everyone. So just please feel free to speak up, reintroduce yourself, and just tell us what, just tell us some closing thoughts about how you're feeling, and we'll all check out, and we'll meet again next time.
I just want to say simply, I think we represent, you know, a desired future, individually and collectively. And the more I engage in these conversations and fellowships, I'm noticing that my heart, it becomes more open, and I'm willing to experiment more, and I get more curious, and then I want to include more people. So
Right.
thank you for taking the time, and it was great meeting you, Parmjit. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Marta. Thank you for checking out. Appreciate it.
I want to echo what you were saying, Marta, about curiosity. I'm just letting all of these concepts marinate in my consciousness here. And Parmjit, I appreciate your invitation to offer how I might think about working with Nefertiti and framing it in terms of healing and bringing in healers. I'm going to ponder that and see what I can come up with, and maybe Nefertiti and I can brainstorm a little bit about, you know, how we might approach that. So thank you for that.
Cool.
Thank you for checking out, Mike. And before you go, Parmjit, I also want to say, anytime you two spend together, Mike and Nefertiti, log it.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. I just want to say this is an amazing exploration. Very, very mind-opening, heart-opening, space-opening. And I believe that we are well-equipped to find a transformation for not only ourselves, but for everyone we have interactions with. So, very awesome. Thank you very much. Check it out.
Thank you, Nefertiti. Okay.
Cool. So life's a funny old thing, isn't it? You kind of think you're getting somewhere, and then it all comes crashing down, and then something else happens, and you kind of think, okay, let's try this and see. And that's all we can do, because, you know, you can't predict things, can you? You just have to try them, and try not to get too disappointed when things don't work out. But they say for every door that closes, another one opens. So let's just keep opening those doors, see where we get to.
Yeah, thank you, Parmjit. And I just want to close out by saying, absolutely, to me, and the story I'm telling myself was, this was incredibly productive. And that's the kind of thing where, when we understand what's going on kind of on that subliminal level, what's going on in that Black economy, what we did today was incredibly productive. So I would like to invite everybody to explore that idea as well, because the more time we spend on this, you know, the more we deepen our relationships, the more we're going to be able to deepen the relationships with others as well, and help understand from a heart perspective what's really happening here. And with that, I am out.